everyone. Today we have gathered here to discuss our TOK knowledge questions, and the topic for our knowledge questions is: Does money buy happiness? And as I read out two knowledge questions we have at hand, I would like to remind you that our question is a question that has been one of the most fundamental inquiries that people have had in the modern society, and it brings an important aspect to our perception of money and happiness. So the two knowledge questions are: how do emotions and intuitions play a role in our understanding of happiness? And the second one is: to what extent does the amount of money earned have an influence on the happiness and the satisfaction of an individual?
Well, we can begin with the first question, right, Efa?
Yes, of course.
Which reads out as: how do emotions and intuitions play a role in our understanding of happiness? So, well, the first thing when I hear this question is that isn't happiness a form of emotion? Because the question says, how does emotions play a role in our happiness, but in understanding happiness? But then when you think more deeply about it, you can understand that sadness is an emotion that intensifies happiness. So if you're living a miserable life, let's say, when you get happy, it feels better for you rather than being happy after living a stably happy life. Don't you agree?
Yes, I agree. I think
Yes,
that
yes.
the main thing that boosts our happiness is actually the contrast of our emotions. So what I mean by the contrast is, as you mentioned, so if a man has a very poor, sad, miserable life and becomes happy afterwards, he will actually become, I think, more happy than if he were living a happy life instead of his current poor life.
Yes. I actually agree with you, Matt, quite a bit.
And I would also say that, so I personally see around me that people often associate money and having lots of money with happiness, and I think that the thing is, money is a tool that is actually leading to happiness, and money is a tool that helps us to buy get a serve of something that would make us happy, or that would be a satisfactory to us. And I'd say that, not speaking for money itself, but when we possess money, it is a way to get further into our satisfaction for life. However, I also see this. So I've said that money is a tool to getting to happiness, but it's also, the thing is, the amount of money you earn. I obviously see that. I mean, for myself as well, for most individuals in our society, if you earn more money, even if you don't spend it, it makes you happy. I mean, having that dollar bill in your hand, or having more dollar bills in your hand than you have, makes you happy. That's the actual truth. I mean,
Well, FF,
Yeah,
before we get
I want to say something, please.
yes, Star, please. But the subject
Of course,
is
go on.
about happiness is understood. So maybe what you said would better apply for the second question.
Now, I want to state that it's almost crazy to question how much money you need to be happy. So the notion that money can't buy happiness has been around a long time, but it turns out that there's a measurable connection between income and happiness. Not surprisingly, people with comfortable living standards are happier than people living in poverty. Now, that's a fact. Now, if you live in a more comfy zone and more stable society, you'll be more happy with your money and you can spend it a lot efficiently. But if you live in poverty, you won't be as happy as you're living in a standard and stable society.
Well, again, that's more into the second knowledge question. But yes, I agree. But again, to not carry it out, the question still stands to be, I mean, what how does intuitions play a role in our understanding of happiness? Because it is a truly deep question, and to define happiness, you have to go really deep. Happiness isn't just a pleasure you take out of life. It might be the pleasure of achieving something, and so on. So, Efe, what do you think? How do you think intuitions play a role in understanding happiness?
I mean, first of all, I would like to say that there is no concrete differentiation between happy and sad or bad or good. I mean, it might sound really cliche when we differentiate those and say that they're contrarily totally, but it's like I'd say it's like a spectrum, and there you cannot achieve absolute happiness without having any um, misery or any feelings that are different than happiness. But also, you cannot achieve the other end of the spectrum. You just keep going back and forth in this, and our emotions, our various emotions, are key factors in this. And I'd say that many emotions we have, excitement, sometimes being proud, or many other things like that, could relate to the general term of happiness. But I would still say that our intuitions at some point, um, when we sense something, and when the thing that we sense, we feel like it will have a good effect on us, it will be beneficial for us. We think that we feel happier, and I'd say that that is, I mean, it will be kind of off topic, but still, happiness is different for each person and different in each society, and it's the meaning of happiness is constructed differently for each person in their own heads. And I'd say that our own ways of intuitions and our own various emotions and their composition together define happiness in our minds.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great way of
Yes.
looking at it. But something I look at it is also that happiness isn't a concrete thing at all, since like a rich man wouldn't really appreciate getting a tofash for his 21st birthday, whereas someone who's living on the streets would really be happy with it. So the things that make people happy also differ, which is why I don't think that money cannot always make you happy.
And I think that on building on this, wealth kind of raises your standard of happiness. I mean, when you, for
Yes.
instance, gain more money, you're not going to be enjoying the smaller stuff you bought when you didn't have the money because now you've tasted a greater pleasure. So
Mm-hmm.
the main thing is,
I totally agree with your opinion. I mean, like, if you're richer and someone buys you a better car, you'll be more satisfied than a normal car that's bought to you.
But I'd
I
like
mean,
to focus.
that's really important. Like, the word you said, Matt, is very important. Like, raising the standard of being happy, or raising the standard of the emotions in the society you live,
But
is, I
at this
think, directly dependent on the money you earn, or the yes, if it talk.
Sorry for interrupting, I'm really sorry. But at this point, as Matt has mentioned well, I would like to focus on two different kinds of wealth that I see as. So the first one would
Yes.
be material wealth, which is possessing lots of things that would lead to this happiness concept.
Yes.
But I'd also say that another key type of wealth is spiritual wealth. I mean, that satisfaction we feel in our soul. I mean, even this conversation with you, with my friends, or just taking a walk with a friend, or praying to God for some people, or reading a poem or watching a movie. I mean, those things, you don't necessarily need materialism for that, and that only touches your heart. And I'd say that this concept of spiritual wealth is so important that I actually believe that material wealth leads to our spiritual wealth. And as mentioned in many religious texts as well, our spiritual wealth, or our attempt or our will to complete us to the perfect human. And that was also mentioned by Nietzsche. I mean, I'd say that I would say that as we are on our journey to reach that perfect person, like that top phase of humanity, but I'll get the word. So it's called Übermensch in German, and it's
Meta-human,
yes, yes,
Efe.
meta-human. All right. So I kind of mixed it up right now, and I'll sum it up. So it's called Übermensch, and in Turkish it's called
Yes.
Üst insan, which is a direct translation for the topper person or the
It was
high
like
person.
over person, über
Our
is
person, yes.
stuff.
And I'd say that we are trying to fulfill that criteria to become the over person, and I would say these materials lead up to that spiritual over person we have inside ourselves. And although we cannot get to that point easily, or there's no way of getting to that point because we'll always have some opposite feelings inside of our minds and body. I'd say that we're still in this process of constructing and putting up well to reach to that level.
Yes.
I think that reaching that state of overhuman, or let's say ultimate human, I don't think it's that hard because it seems hard when you try to focus on big things. I think that and the thing that makes it easy actually is if you start enjoying small things in life. This might be a little off topic, but I think that learning how to enjoy things that are smaller first would make it easier to gain greater pleasure in the larger things and make it easier to build towards the ultimate human. After all, it's all like a ladder.
I totally agree.
Definitely agree. And now, if we were to move on to the second question, well,
Wait, before we move on, I would like to emphasize one last thing that we have forgotten. When we think of when we think in terms of TOK, theory of knowledge, so we use different ways of knowing to reach that concept of happiness. And
yes,
as we
like
have mentioned,
emotion is
We have
emotions, and we
intuition.
usually use our imagination to reach that perfect person in our minds. And
Everyone has a different ways of achieving happiness. That's the core example of imagination, I think.
and also reason is the way that we turn those imaginary ideas into the real world, and with reason we find ways to examine this whole world and then get the best out of it so that we will be happier.
Yes, exactly. Now, again, as I said, moving on with the second question: to what
Alright.
extent does the amount of money earned have an influence on the happiness and satisfaction of an individual? Now, as we kind of tried to define or at least border happiness in the previous question, now the question is, how much does the money we earn affect this? And to be honest, I'm gonna go with two contrary opinions on this because I personally believe that happiness does not come from money, and it has nothing to do with wealth. But as Leonardo DiCaprio also says in his famous movie, The Wolf of the Wall Street, I also agree with his words, which he states, "Let me tell you something, there is no nobility in poor. I've been a poor man and I've been a rich man, and I choose rich every time." So, again, yes, a poor man would choose rich every time, but does that mean that being rich makes him happier? No, it just presents him more opportunities. So what do you think?
Now, I want to talk about little scientific things about this second question. Now, it states that after research done by Americans, 75,000 marks, $75,000 is the final mark of being happy. Like, happiness stands beyond $75,000 a year. And I don't really believe that money affects happiness because, like, in the example of Sabancı, you know, Sabancı family is a very rich and very noble, not noble, but very rich family. And Sakıp Sabancı is a very rich man, but however, he has a lot of cars and he has a lot of mansions and he has a lot of things. But his son can't walk, and his only dream was that his son was going to use his cars someday. But now his son can't use his cars because he can't even walk. And as you see, he's unhappy. And he says that I have a very big factory, Toyota factory, but I don't have a son that could use the cars that I own. So I think that money does not necessarily mean happiness, and money does not affect happiness. And I don't believe that $75,000 marks doesn't mark your happiness at all.
And again, the thing you said, you know this because of emotion, and as Efe had mentioned earlier, emotion is a great way of knowing in this subject, especially since how we feel solely depends on our emotions.
All right. When we think of the areas of knowledge in TOK, we use lots of areas of knowledge to determine these concepts and ideas and their correlation. But I'd like to focus on the mathematics one. So, as we see in data we have at hand, we see that in the happiness index, Costa Rica is the happiest country in the world, due to the Happy Planet Index, and Costa Rica and many Latin American countries are on top of the list. However, when we see the average income of Costa Ricans, we see that it is $14,000, and it's about in the middle of the list. I mean,
Exactly. So once again, proving
So
that.
money does not mean necessarily happiness.
I think that money alone does not mean happiness. I think money in raw state does not mean happiness. And also, I think that money would increase our happiness to some extent. By some, I mean not as much as people would imagine. I like to emphasize on 2 points. First is a continuing of what Tarek was talking about, the 75 marks. It was seen that when these people had an increase in their income, I think their income doubled, and they thought that it would increase their happiness by 100%, but actually it just affected it by 9%. So from this, the mathematical aspect, we can see that an increase of money doesn't necessarily directly relate to the amount of happiness. And second of all, I think that to be able to enjoy money and use it as a means to get to happiness, we must do something with money.
However, I want to emphasize upon a very, very important fact that income and life satisfaction is directly correlated with it.
No,
that's my opinion. Life satisfaction, not happiness, but life satisfaction is, I think, directly.
I'd say it depends on person to person, but I would agree with you on this, Tariq. So the thing is,
not happiness, but life satisfaction.
So the thing is, you mean satisfaction? I'd say there are similar concepts with happiness, but it's a different argument. So anyways, I would support your argument with this and also oppose with this. So my support would be, I would say money provides you opportunities to be happier. I mean, with the money you have at hand, you can, possess happiness, not only in numerical values of monies, but also, the experiences you would have, the empirical knowledge you would construct with the things you do would generally require spending some money in our world. But also, thinking of ultra-rich people, I would say this. Having loads of money brings a burden to you, and handling with that money in hand, and
it's a responsibility.
It is a responsibility, and we all
very big responsibility.
The fact that you have to protect it arises when you.
So far, you, Efe, Matt, and Tariq, you've been focused on the mathematics, but I'm gonna also show you another part, which is human sciences. That is a really important area.
Can I say one small thing, and then you can continue? It's related to human sciences. So I would say when you have loads of money, there's a burden, and it sometimes has a negative impact on people's relations. And I'd say it is the main factor of breaking up of the families, which suddenly possess lots of money. Okay, Timur, continue.
Okay, so I was saying, well, human sciences is economics and psychology, and well, happiness is based on psychology, and economics is money is based on economics. So it is definitely dependent on human sciences, and the reason for that is because even though your income and your wealth may increase, you don't necessarily always have to be happier, because as your wealth increases, you get used to higher wealth standards, and the happiness you gain doesn't change. That is my opinion. So the life satisfaction you get You may get more life satisfaction, but that doesn't make you more happier, not necessarily. If you are a man good at appreciating what you have, maybe, but I wouldn't think that it directly has an effect like that.
I agree with you. And also one more area of knowledge would be ethics, since people are often obsessed with earning more money than they are usually having. And when we see an interview and a research done in The Economist with 120 people that have an average of $25 million as their gainings, we see that almost all of them want to increase their fortune by a quarter more. And I see that they are usually, I mean, not stereotypically, but most of them would be obsessed with earning more money as it's a way of their own ambition. And I think that brings the question of ethics there. So in what ethical ways do these people gain that money? And people, we see this, that's obvious. There's a luck factor, and when we see lots of people who do less stuff and then earn lots of money, and we see lots of people make a lot of stuff and not getting that much money.
Definitely.
So you're asking, is it right that some people just amount to incredible amounts of wealth by luck, but some people who actually work hard can't really gain as much as them?
Sometimes luck, or sometimes some other methods, which are not ethical in some
like
Yes.
maybe negative competition, which would ultimately lead to
Now,
how shall I say,
as
harm your
FNOs,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Now,
harm
as
your-
FNOs, we were together with Efe today after school, and we were with Mertegi, our fellow friend, and his father is a very well-known banker, and he works with very rich men, and as you know, like bankers always do. And he told us a very important story today. He told us that a very rich man who came to his father told this story to his father, to Mertege's father, and this rich man's son once dropped his coin to the toilet, and his father came and said to him that he must take the money from the toilet. So we see that money is very precious even to the rich people, and they even are, the money is very precious for them, like even for the richest, and they have to be very thankful for their money.
Yes, exactly. And like money gives you opportunities, not happiness. And Efe said this many times. When you take these opportunities, you get to be happy. And like, let's say I have money, I get to go to university, and I get to graduate. So after all, I get to get a good satisfaction out of my. Would you agree, Tarek?
Yes, I would definitely.
Our time has.
I mean, they
passed on this discussion.
rich people work a lot to like get to the point they are in today, and money is very precious for them. And some don't have the opportunity to enjoy the money they possess. That's a very important factor in like the question we have in hand. Does money bring happiness? Like they don't have the time, they don't have the opportunity to enjoy the money they possess, the fortune
Can
they
I add
possess.
something?
Well, we're kind of out of time, but yes, quick.
And yet again, I think from this we see that the way we go to happiness with wealth also can hinder that road we take to go to happiness itself. From the example that rich people have to eventually work hard to go to that point, and ultimately they miss the time to be able to take advantage of their opportunities, is what I think.
Yes.
I agree.
Thank you for your opinion, Matt.
We would like to thank Google for helping us with this hangout, and have a great
YouTube.
day, everyone.
Can I add one last thing?
No, have
30 seconds most. All right. So
I think you're
Have a
talking
great one.
25 minutes.
okay, 30 seconds. So there's a thing that there's a perception that money spoils people who earn a lot of money, and we see that in today's society in England, people like millionaires averagely gain their or keep their fortune for 6 generations. And I'd say that the ones who earn that money know the importance of that money, but the ones like next generations might be spoiled for that, and those people have a different perception of money. And also one last thing, the society that is set in right now mostly focuses on money, and it's a capital society. However, like the things we have discussed right now benefit this society the most, but if this society is the most beneficial and the optimal society, that's another question for TOK, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
That was a great ending. See you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
After this